Okay, this is Delphina Bailey Nichols, and it's been a really long time since I've uploaded a video. But in this one, I want to talk about the culture of the King of the North in the Book of Revelation, and when you apply the Native American Four Directions color wheel to the Book of Revelation, what you get is that the King of the North is white people, and also the angel of the north wind, because who's one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, bound up underneath the river Euphrates, and the progenitor of the white race. Okay, so this is who we're talking about: the father of the white people, the angel of the north wind, someone who has a genetic investment within the human race, but also a spiritual investment as well, who is released from being bound up underneath the river Euphrates in the end times. Okay, so let's look at the culture of the King of the North. First of all, if you're a king or an emperor, you didn't get there by being Mr. Nice Guy all the time like everybody thinks. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And I'll say, okay, let's look at, there are some positives about the King of the North Wind's culture. That's why a lot of people all over the world are fighting, trying to move to America, fighting, trying to move to Europe, instead of trying to get their own territory under control. And there's also some negatives about the King of the North's culture, and also some negatives about the King of the North's genetic instinctive drives, and the whole world knows that side of it too. There's two sides to that coin. Same as for the other kings. And if you look at the symbolism and apply the four directions color wheel, you can see some strong hints at the negative side of the coin in the book of Revelation for each of the four races. Now, in this video, we're just focusing on the King of the North and not the other three, because there's enough for everybody to be mad at or angry about, but we're not going to get into that right now. Okay, so if you do your research in the old days, like medieval times and colonial times and all that, well, they're still colonizing, but like way, way back. If a white guy wanted to get divorced, he really didn't have to. If he wanted to, he could just take his wife down to the market and sell her the same way he would sell a cow or a goat or a pig. Okay? And slavery was not viewed quite the same way as it is today, because for one thing, black men invented slavery. Black men practiced slavery for thousands of years and built multiple empires off of it, and they brought white men into their mystery schools and taught them how to keep slaves. Okay? They learned this from their white fathers. So with that said, a white man in slavery times probably wouldn't have looked at owning black slaves in quite the same way that modern society does, because in his mind, he'll be thinking, well, you're not special. I can sell my wife. I can beat my wife up. I can move another bitch in the house and force them to work in the fields all day while I go drink with my friends. I can do whatever the fuck I want to. I can do right. I can do wrong. Nobody tells me what to do. I don't have to answer to nobody. This is how white male patriarchs, who were not real Christians and not truly emotionally invested, would have thought about it. And even the ones who maybe were real Christians, maybe they wouldn't have been that horrified at the idea of slavery. Because, and another thing you got to look at is, These people had all of their neighbors attacking them. Asians invaded them and beat their ass. Okay? The Huns. Like, the Asians were a scary bedtime story for a long, long time in Europe. Other white people kept repeatedly invading them and cutting their heads off and slaughtering them. Black people and Arabs invaded them and then stayed there, making them second-class citizens and slaves in their own homeland for like 200 years. Europeans, they got their ass whooped by everybody on the fucking map, and they studied in black men's schools how to be oppressors. So during slavery times, a white male elder, he would have looked at slavery as equal treatment. If you were being sold in the market, you were equal to his wife. If you were being beat up and abused, you're equal to his wife or his neighbor's wife. If they take your children without permission and send them to foster care or send them to learn a trade with another family, you are being treated like a queen or a princess, because if you're in a white royal family, they can take all of your children without your consent and have them raised by the grandmother, the auntie, or some cousin in another county or another region who wants to train them for war or blacksmithing or whatever the fuck it is they're supposed to learn. So the emotional and psychological trauma that we as people of color experience when we are treated like a white female princess who has no real legal authority over her own children, on some level, maybe they don't mentally fully comprehend the hurt. Maybe they don't fully comprehend our feelings of inequality, because they're like, well, bitch, who are you? Meghan Markle did not have full legal authority over her children while she sat on the throne. The queen was going to raise her children in the castle, and the mom don't have custody. Grandma has custody. Grandma raised the children, and you don't get to raise your children. Those are grandma's kids. You don't get a say, bitch. You don't get nothing except to leave and go to your own fucking house. You know, that's their culture. That's how they live. They can do, if you're a princess, they can do whatever the fuck they want to do with your kids. They say bye. You can see them when they're 18. And that's how they treat you if you're royalty. You know, the only difference is that because we're not in England and because we're in America, they're like, okay, well, to enforce our European culture, we got to do some fraud on some documents. We got to, have some judges, some lawyers, some police, some doctors, some nurses to back us up. And we're going to still do it the white way. And in their minds, you really are literally being treated like an equal when they do that shit to you. But the catch, though, is that that's not the American way. That's the European way. And when an American born and raised in America is brought up being treated like a white female princess who has no say, or being treated like a red-blooded older generation white male's wife, where it could fall anywhere on the spectrum, when they bend and twist laws to force their European traditions on us, it's terrifying and traumatizing on so many levels, especially because they really do outnumber us, and our men lie intentionally so they don't look bad, but they do it. They do outnumber us. They get a lot of power from that. But like the king of the north, the white tribe underneath the genetic forefather of the white race in the book of Revelations, the children of the angel of the north, they may have been contracted to modernize the world technologically, but when the creator contracts someone to do something, you're not allowed to push it and take it too far. And right now, we're at a time in history where the Caucasian tribe might very well be on their way off the throne to make room for some other tribe to be crowned. Why? Because they took shit too far. The whole world knows they took shit too far, even though a lot of people are fighting and dying trying to make it to America or to Europe to make a new life. Even though a lot of people are literally dying trying to get here, at the same time, the whole world still knows the darker, nastier ways. And like, even though there's some positive things about life in the territories of the King of the North, at the same time, nobody wants to tolerate their behaviors and their twisting and bending of laws and their fraud with intent to force their culture on America or on modern Europe when we're supposed to be distancing ourselves from that. That would be like if the white man was put back on the throne, which, sorry to say it, I'll believe that when I see it. I don't think the black man will be selected to be crowned as next head of household over earth. You know, when you look at the book of Revelation, think of it almost like Challenge Day in the Black Panther movie, where you had 5 tribes in the Black Panther movie. And if anyone wants to challenge for the, for top dog position for their tribe, they can. But with the struggle between the rulers, not the people under them. And with the 4 horsemen, who are also the 4 angels of the 4 winds in the book of Revelation, and also the 4 progenitors of the 4 races bound up under the river Euphrates. When you look at them, think of them as being almost like the challengers in the Challenge Day scene in Black Panther, okay? And, and like I said, the King of the North, the white tribe, they may have had a contract to modernize this planet, but in some ways, which everybody knows, even though everybody wants to live in their countries, still everybody knows about the nastier, more unjust side where they just took the contract too far. And that's the difference between being under the law versus being under grace. If you're trying to be crowned as the chief race to implement some needed changes or to be top dog for whatever temporary amount of time, which for an immortal or for a being that reincarnates, okay, allegedly, and I don't know if this is true or not, but you have people of indigenous descent, they believe that the red people will be the next tribe crowned to be top dog on the earth. You have a lot of black people who think their tribe will be top dog on the earth. But is it true? In order to figure that out, like what may or may not go down next, you got to apply the interpretation model in the book of Genesis, chapters 40 and 41. The technique described by Joseph the Dream Interpreter in Genesis 40 and 41, that's the same pattern that's being used, and that interpretation pattern has to be applied to the book of Revelation. And when you apply it, that's how you can clearly see that the 4 horsemen and the 4 angels of the 4 winds and the 4 forefathers of the 4 races of human beings, you can see that they're all the same thing. They're all the same. when you apply the book of Genesis chapter 40 and 41 model. Yeah, so I just want to say, like, when you go to God in prayer and you're praying and doing rituals or whatever your thing is, and you're asking God for equality, you don't want to ask that God for equality, because again, in the older generation white culture, like colonial, medieval, whatever, you know, if they're enslaving you and abusing you and selling you on the market when they don't want you anymore, they're treating you like their wife. They're treating you as pretty much almost as an equal, or treating you like low-income white trash. So there are some circumstances, or if they take your kid, commit a lot of fraud to do what the fuck they want to do with your kids without permission, that's not seen as an act of cruelty, because their princesses don't have full legal rights over their kids, and the elders can pick and choose when and if they want to allow a duchess or a princess to raise their babies, because that's their culture. So the mental and emotional and intergenerational damage and trauma that comes from them committing fraud or committing mobbing to force their culture, which is European and not legally American on paper. You know, when they do that, they're technically treating you as an equal, but they're just treating you like white trash, older generation white trash. So when you pray, you might not want to pray for equality if you don't fully and completely know what they're really doing to their own people behind closed doors. When you pray, you want to tell the Creator, okay, well, I want to better myself. I want to be the best version of a human being I can possibly be. I want to live the best version of my life as XYZ type of person, whatever type of person you are. You know, like, you want to live your best life. That's what everybody wants. Everybody wants to live their best life. And maybe you might want equity. Equity is not the same thing as equality. If you don't know what any group of people, and I'm not even going to go in on Africans, Native Americans, and Asians, because it's some ultra dark shit there, just like white folks. And I'm not going to go in on that. But what you want to pray for is, okay, well, I want equity and I want to live my best life. Okay? Think of it, when you approach the Creator, think of it as you trying to approach the Most High as an emissary for one of the tribes in a coalition, like in the Black Panther movie. And it's challenge day. And does someone want to challenge intellectually? Does someone want to challenge politically? Does someone want to say, okay, well, I can be the top tribe on this planet. And here's the proof. Look at how much my people have come up in their character. Look at how much my people have come up in their intellect, self-control, and self-direction. Look at how much my people have repaired the damage that they've done to their land. Look at the extent to which my people have stopped overpopulating and abusing each other. See, right now, I don't think there's any of the four races can compete with each other on that level right now. Right now, only thing anybody can say is, oh, well, we think we're not as bad as the next guy, and here's the reason why. And then you look into their justification, and a lot of time it don't hold water when you get into what's really going on behind closed doors. So with that said, what I hope is that more people will pray for equity and pray to live their best life and also pray for others to live as the best version of themselves as a tribe, as a race, as a people. Because, like I said, like, you think we living in a full-on real civilization, and we nowhere near close to that. We can fake it superficially, but when you get to know how things are really run and what's really going on behind closed doors, I'm like, no, we do have a long way to go towards full civilization among all four races. And Neanderthal smashing and frauding in order to compete for being the Black Panther or the White Panther or the Red Panther or the Yellow Panther or whatever chief race on the planet. Doing the Neanderthal smash in pursuit of that role ain't gonna cut it, hun. Gotta elevate so you can point and say, oh, look at what we all have done. Look at how self-determined and self-controlled we are. Look at how good we are at doing good for our own people, but also doing good for others in a balanced way. Team White Man has worked so hard and invested many, many years of study all over the world, trying to learn how they can prove themselves as worthy to have a seat at the galactic table. And we as people of color, we have to put in the work. We on that level just like they did. If a white male celebrity scientist like Carl Sagan or the French scientists who came before him, if men like them can go to a mud hut and spend 6, 7, or however many years living in a mud hut, even though they have a PhD in science, and study hard and then come out of that and return to their community to build up their space exploration and defense program. Okay, well, people as color, we got to do the work too. It's not enough to say, oh, well, I was here first, and I found myself one or two bitches, and they got to do everything I say without question, and that makes me qualified to have a seat at the table to determine the future and to be the chief group or the chief tribe or whatever. No, that's not gonna cut it. Or you can't say, oh, well, we went into Ethiopia and in the first month of 2021 and mass murdered 700 Ethiopians to get the Ark of the Covenant, and then we flew Hopi Indians into Kenya from an American reservation to confirm us as the chosen tribe over the black race and the true Black Panthers and whatever, and we have these Hopis to prove it. Okay, well, guess what? Smashing and bashing to take the Ark of the Covenant, that does not earn you a seat at the galactic table. And also in the spirit world, it's evident in the spirit world as well that if because you have done that, that makes you look like a fraud and a piece of shit with sugar sprinkled on top. No, you didn't fool nobody when you went in the beginning of 2021 and mass murdered more than 700 Ethiopians who were unarmed and defenseless because you wanted to give the Ark of the Covenant to my ex-husband's tribe, the Kikuyu tribe, and fraudulently pass them off as chosen by the Creator to be the chief tribe of the black race. You don't smash and bash and mass murder to get the position. You have to prove yourself in your choices, your character, in the fruits of the works of your hands. And so, no, you don't use frauding, smashing, and bashing and popularity contests to earn a seat at the galactic table. When you do that, that makes you just as bad as Team White Man, if not worse. You know, if you want a fair competition for self-determination through the higher spiritual councils and also the higher galactic councils, you got to work on self. You got to say, hey, this is what I did with me to elevate myself. You got to be like, okay, well, this is what I did with my family, and here's how they elevated as a result of what I did, good or bad. And yeah, sometimes there's some things that might seem bad. That's a part of elevation. Like, if you're a parent and if you have to tell your kids, like, I don't know if I can say what I'm about to say because white culture is not particularly accepting of discipline of children in certain ways. You know, I don't believe in child abuse, but let's say you want to threaten your child with discipline before you go to the store. Your children, they live in a beautiful home, they're well fed, they got great friends, they have everything they could ever want, but you don't want them harassing you in the fucking store. And so let's say as a parent, you want to threaten your child with discipline and say, we're going to go to the store. You're not going to harass me for a bunch of shit that you really don't need. Not today, not on this day. And as a parent, it may feel bad to the child who is well taken care of and has a nice home and everything they could want and good friends. It may feel bad, but at the same time, what are you building up? Their character. When you establish dominance over your child by moderately and reasonably threatening discipline, or when you establish dominance by rewarding them for doing a good thing without having to be asked to do it, okay, yeah, that elevates them, that builds them up. See, everything in life is not always simple, but I believe that smash, bad, and fraud can do nothing for an ethnic group or for whichever one of the four races you belong to except keep you down and hold you back, because there are higher level spiritual beings and higher level spiritual councils. They're not like the Hebrew God. The Hebrew God will baby and coddle you and say, oh, well, if you do this wrong, I'm not going to like that. If you do that wrong, that's going to hurt you. Even in the book of Jeremiah, it says, where the Hebrew God says to the Hebrew people, hey, well, you're dealing with these other gods who you don't know, and that can hurt you. It's right there in plain English. You don't know them personally, and it can hurt you. And here's why that's true. Because again, adults don't like being coddled and baby. You coddle an adult, and they'll hate you, attack you, accuse you of control, accuse you of thinking you're better. But let me go into detail. Okay. So, book of Jeremiah, it says, you worship other gods who you do not know to your own hurt. Well, when you look at how pagan gods do things, a pagan god is not going to sit there and baby you and say, oh, well, if you do this, I won't like it. If you do that, maybe to a degree, but they don't always do that. You know, pagan gods, they're going to look at you like, okay, you're a grown-ass fucking adult. You know right from wrong. You can feel it. You can think with your own mind. You know when you're doing some shit that ain't right and it's cruel and not fair. I'm like, what the fuck I gotta warn you for if I'm gonna judge you? The fuck I gotta lecture you for if I'm gonna judge your ass? A pagan god, a lot of the times they're gonna be like, I don't have to say shit to you. A pagan god can be like, if I'm gonna judge you, or if I'm gonna let the rest of the spirit realm know what you all about, and if you ain't shit, I don't gotta tell you nothing. That's how they operate sometimes, because they know that you cannot reason with an ignorant ass person. You know, so they might say, okay, let me go over there to these flesh and blood people, and then let them know what you're all about. Or they might be like, let me go to these spirits over here, let them know what you're all about. Like, and a good example of that is like the issue of human sacrifice. There's some people who kill others in rituals for money and gain. But what they don't know, because it's, you know, a lot of times it's not explained up front. What they don't know is that if they do a ritual where they kill someone for money, for gain, or if they do a ritual where they rob a grave and steal a body part for gain, what that can result in is their own death. They can die very young, they could die in an accident, and yeah. So you can look at the Bible and say, oh, you know, you could read Jeremiah 8:8 where it says, oh, well, you will worship other gods who you do not know to your own hurt. You could read the Bible where it says, oh, the wages of sin is death and all that. And you think, oh, I'm being controlled, I'm being judged. Fuck you, Hebrew God. But when your ass does a human sacrifice or steals a body part from a grave for a money ritual, then after you're dead, then it'll be explained to you that's against the rules. You know, if you have not taken out the time to go somewhere like Oshun State or to whatever, or to a high priest of Lakshmi or whoever the fuck you're going to talk to, if you're not putting in the time to learn the finer details, then yeah, you could find out that, oh, okay, so the stuff that might sound controlling and domineering and might make you feel like you're being hit over the head. Okay, well, if you go to a pagan god who you don't know and you're not putting in the work to study deeper, you could do a ritual that could get your ass killed because you don't know the rules. You know, just because it's a goddess of love and money or a god of war or a higher being of whatever kind, they're not going to sit there and lecture you and write all these 3, 4, 5, 600 page books to give you a kindergarten level understanding of shit like the Hebrew God did. And people twisted it, of course, we know. But the pagan gods, they're not going to do that because they're looking at you like, who the fuck do you think you trying to run game on? Who the fuck do you think you're lying to? Who the fuck do you think you trying to turn people against? You must be out your goddamn mind. That's the pagan deities. And you hate the Hebrew God because the Hebrew God took, you know, basically spoke to humanity on the level of what you would talk to a 5-year-old. And here's another example. The Bible says, you will not set before me a sacred stone. Why? Okay, well, if you have an obelisk or a pyramid on your altar, you might have enemies who will try to make an energetic connection with that by astral projecting into your house. And then they want to set up that stone on your altar as a doorway into your house after they intrude into your house, giving you no peace in your own fucking home. Or maybe you want to pray at your altar, but because stones have minerals with covalent and ionic bonding, then naturally that gives them electrical properties and abilities to absorb a lot of electrical energies because of the ionic and covalent bonding that's going on in those stones or crystals you might have. So a lot of people, they'll say, oh, well, I had so many breakthroughs after I took the crystals off my prayer altar. Thank you, Mr. Pagan. Thank you, Miss Pagan, for telling me to take the crystals off my altar. Okay, well, guess what? In ancient times, the Hebrew God didn't give you the explanation about the ionic and covalent bonding and the electrical properties of the crystals on your altar. Didn't give you that because you wouldn't have fucking understood the shit, okay? You know, the Hebrew God didn't sit there and say, oh, okay, well, you'll get better results if there's no stone on the altar. Or maybe people could have made it sound authoritative to have more of an effect to let you know, hey, this is important. No, but, you know, again, you know, it's offensive to people when they look in the Bible and say, do not set before me a sacred stone. You know, but again, that's just a kindergarten level explanation. Like soul ties, that's in the Bible. You know, the whole twin flame thing, that's in there too. You know, soul ties, twin flames, like look at Yeshua. At one point Yeshua says, okay, well, if you have sex with a prostitute who's full of STDs, well, not even if you use a condom, Yeshua just says, if you have sex with a prostitute, you're making me have sex with a prostitute. Why? It's blood covenant. So if you have a blood covenant with Yeshua and you're having sex with all these different people and picking up their spirit attachments, where maybe they might have a dead grandfather who loved fucking like little elementary school age kids. Maybe they had a dead auntie who was a serial killer, or whatever kind of spirits and generational curses they have on them. Okay, well, if you're in a blood covenant with Yeshua and you're fucking these people or friending these people, you going up in their house, you hanging around them or you going in the temple and church picking up spirits off of them. Okay, well, through your blood covenant, you're giving an electrical, energetic connection to dump all that shit into Yeshua. You know, think of it as like a cross between a magnetic field and connecting electrical wires in your house. Or think of it like your cell phone connection. Your cell phone is not connected to somebody else's cell phone with wires, but yet you can still get images and words with pinpoint accuracy, even though there's no wires attached to that cell phone. Think of yourself as being like a cell phone or a satellite. And again, like a lot of these so-called pagan and New Age and shamanistic practices, they are explained in the Bible, but at a kindergarten level, so that if you have no education in physics, genetics, molecular chemistry, electromagnetism, astronomy, the Bible is designed where if you have no education at all, you can at least get a kindergarten level understanding of basic spiritual practice concepts and basic international and local spiritual government concepts. And, you know, there's even a basic kindergarten level description of the difference between being under the law versus being under grace. Like in the Old Testament, there's a Phoenician king who had a contract with the Hebrew God that brought him so much wealth. He was under contract, not grace. He was not grafted into the bloodline genetically. He was not grafted into the bloodline on a soul level. He was not plugging himself in to the spiritual DNA or the physical DNA. He had a contract. And the Phoenician king got hurt really, really bad and driven mentally ill because not only did he break his contract, he badmouthed and trashed the shit out of the Hebrew God, saying, oh, I didn't need you. I got all this wealth and power without you. And your people are all losers anyway. So the Phoenician king, who was under the law, under a contract with the Most High God, the Elohim above all Elohim. And he not only violated that contract, but trash-mouthed the Most High and his people. Yeah, he got fucked up really, really bad for that. And you look at the story of Egypt and you pay really, really close attention to verses like Book of Isaiah chapter 19. You can kind of see there's a similar thing where no, you don't have to change your religion. No, you don't have to change your culture. You're under a contract, but not under grace. And Yeshua in the New Testament, he warns people about that. Like, don't enter into contracts with the Most High that you have no intent to keep. You know, he's like, you don't do that. You can get hurt really bad doing that and backstabbing on that level. You know, because like people, they foul. People, you know, like the Bible even says a horse will be kind to someone who feeds it and takes care of it. But with man, that is not so. And a lot of times it's kind of true. A human being is more like a tiger. You can feed it and train it all you want to, but at the end of the day, it's still a tiger. And if you work with it too much, there might be that one day where it decides to maul your ass or rip you a new asshole because you can never truly fully tame a tiger. And a lot of people are like that. A human being, a lot of times, is never truly fully tamed. They're just waiting until that moment to do what a human being's gonna do, like a fucking tiger. A lot of people, they like that. They're not like that horse that's gonna go with the program, be happy-go-lucky, whatever, as long as you feed them, take care of them. No, not man. So you can try to make the Elohim out to be like shitty all you want to, but the fact of the matter is, if you had a nicer, kinder Elohim above all Elohim who only had grace but with zero laws outside of that, and you had, you know, and there was, all you would do is just immerse the world back into a state of endless civil wars. And granted, we still have a lot of places on earth that have endless civil wars, but that's their choice, that's their path. You know, like most world superpowers are nations that were many, many small territories divided up. And they came together as one conglomerate under someone who conquered them. And although the person who conquered them to unify them may have been cruel, may have been mean, it ended the endless civil wars. And when you look at places like the Middle East, when you look at a lot of places that have endless conflicts and extreme poverty and people always at each other's throats, people, they have overextended resources. When you look at places that are like that, yeah, they would benefit a lot if they had one guy to rise up among them and to conquer them in a way that's very cruel and unify all their territories in a way that's more streamlined. They would have a lot to gain. They would have a lot of benefits to be conquered in a very cruel, harsh way by one of their own. Like what happened with the first Chinese emperor. He was very cruel. He had a lot of people out to get him because he was on top. But all those cruel, nasty things he did helped to unify China into one nation. And instead of just like 100 small territories constantly at war with each other, like he paved the way to where China could have more stable international trade. He made it possible for China to have at least a somewhat lower bottom line threshold for violence and exploitation. And the path for him to create that stability, it was ugly, it was cruel, it was not nice. But there's a degree of benefit in it. And is China the best place in the world to live today? No. But is it a little bit better off than, is it better in some ways than what people had in the feudal era? Yeah. It's better in some ways. You know, not so much in others. It's a work in progress. And you know, you got a lot of lower level people who think that we are like the ultimate in civilization, the ultimate in human rights and civil rights and all of that. And on this planet, like, no. We're trying to move towards that. We're trying to get there without going extinct. But it's like some people you can't really explain nothing to them. You can't really reason with them at all or beyond a certain point. I mean, America has public schools funded by the government, and a lot of our young people are on the internet teaching each other that the world is flat like a dinner plate. You spend all this money trying to teach children critical thinking, trying to teach them how to think, trying to teach them how to research things, trying to give them a basic entry-level understanding of their world and their government as adults. And it goes right over the head, wasted money. Well, they say, oh, the world is flat like a dinner plate. Or they'll get a job in a courthouse or a social services office or a hospital, a school, or wherever. And they're like, I don't need to know what the fuck the code says. I just need to do things in the courtroom, in the hospital, in the police department according to what I feel. My heart gonna tell me what to do. I don't need to know what the code says. The only thing you need to know is just do what I tell you to do. Tribalism. You know, or you got some people that'll be like, oh, well, you know, I'm not going to say what I was just thinking. I'll save that offensive comment for another time, maybe. I'm not going to say that. In regard to how things tend to work in most countries. But a lot of people, they don't know and don't care what their laws say. They just make decisions based on what they feel. Like, you don't fucking care. You might have a few publicly televised situations where the people actually do things according to what's written, but most of the time, a lot of times it don't happen. You know, and that's why people, they'll be feeling oppressed. You know, they're dealing with people who don't know laws, don't know code, don't know policies, aren't trying to know it, and just deciding shit based on their feelings and based on you do what the fuck I tell you to do. You know, that has choked the life out of so many people who could have had a bright and promising future. And it has given a bright, promising future to a lot of motherfuckers who really don't deserve it and shouldn't be there. You know, it's like a lot of people, they don't know and don't care that the beauty of doing things by the book is that you can make room for individuals who have promise, who have the motivation, the commitment, and the dedication. You can make room for them to come up when you do things by the book. And at the same time, when you're making decisions based on emotions, feelings, and tribalism, that's how you help stagnation to set in. That's how you help people who have shitty character, who make you fucking miserable, they're not qualified for their fucking job, and yet you're helping them to have everything they could ever fucking want because you're doing things at a tribalistic level and letting them have shit, even though they're not really qualified for it and not really that committed, and they got shitty character. You know, you're like creating stagnation instead of, you know, like you're creating a situation where a lot of lazy, corrupted motherfuckers can raise to the highest echelons of power when you're not doing things by the book. You know, like you have some people where I'll use my great uncle Charles Sweet Daddy Grace, who was a shady faith healer. He was a dog, but he saved hell of a lot of lives though. He was a poor example of a father. He was a poor example of a pastor, but a great example of a community organizer, a great example of a financial planner, a great example of someone showing people how to build generational wealth for the entire community, and by showing people how to worship and with other races and be a neighbor to other races, but while also elevating your own and making sure that your own are stable and have something. Like my great uncle Charles Sweet Daddy Grace, he showed people how to do that. And it's really a lot of times not done today, in most cases, but well, anyway, I'm just rambling about a lot of different subjects. I've probably put way too many subjects in this one video. And I'll just leave it at that. You know, my memory's not quite what it used to be, and I'm gonna just cut the video short because I've kind of veered off topic a little by trying to make multiple different points. But I hope that if anyone's gonna look at this, because I don't have a big following, but I hope that the multiple different topics I brought up here will bring clarity to at least someone, even if I only reach like 1 or 2 people.